Ocean Pines is a vibrant residential community nestled on Maryland's eastern shore. With over 9 miles of waterfront property, amenities like an 18-hole championship golf course and a public yacht club, and a rich history dating back to 1968. Of course, if you live here, you probably know most of that. And if you don't, it's almost all apparent from your first visit. Each week on the PinesCast, we work to bring out the ocean pines that might be less apparent. We celebrate the region, the amenities, and, most of all, the people who make and keep Ocean Pines a special place to live. Welcome to the PinesCast, your source of news and insights about ocean pines and the official podcast of the Ocean Pines Association. This week, we are speaking with Shockley and Nancy Mulligan of the Ocean Pines Garden Club, which is getting ready, to gear up for the big spring planting and all of the things they have coming up for the spring. It's time. It's time to start thinking about what you're going to do to make your front yard look better now that there will be people out and about again if the weather breaks, which we are kind of counting on. So I'm going to turn you right over to them, and I will catch you on the other side. Here are Anne and Nancy. I'd like to thank you both so much for being on the program this week, and I'd like to get you to each introduce yourselves to the listeners, because there are two of you, and I want them to be able to know who's talking when as we go through this. So if you could, one at a time, just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do at the Garden Club.
My name is Anne Shockley, and I've been in Ocean Pines for 10 years now. I have been co-vice president for the Garden Club for the past 3 years, and I am now relinquishing that to my lovely person on the right, who is
Nancy Mulligan. And now I'm the co-president of the Garden Club, and it's just incredible. It's been so much fun, and Anne is a unbelievable amount of information and fun to be with. So
it strikes me as a very complex power structure there at the Garden Club.
It's tough. It's tough.
Well, what happened several years ago, Patty Lookner used to be the president, and we looked at the structure because at that time it was just president, vice president, and on down the road. And we decided that it's a much easier job if you have another person working with you to kind of balance things out, whether it's the work or whether it's the ideas or whatever. So at that point in time, we came up with co-presidents and co-vice presidents. The vice presidents are more, their deal is to come up with our meetings and the speakers and where we go and all that kind of business. So there is a lot more to being president of the Garden Club than one might envision in the beginning. So by being co-presidents, you can bounce ideas off one person. If they cannot make the meeting, the other person's there. You can divvy up the jobs. And it just really makes for a more cohesive and a better working arrangement.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, especially when you said when one person can't make it, because that's always, when you have these social clubs that are voluntary and people go out of town and people don't go out in the cold, people don't go out in the hot, and you can make it so that there's always enough people to keep doing the business that makes the fun parts fun.
That's true. And I've been here 10 years as well. And I started out as a realtor, and that got me into traveling through all of the areas of the Pines, and I found it incredibly interesting. And then it was just the gardens that I started to be most interested in because I was a master gardener when I was in Virginia. So I was drawn to the Garden Club right away.
That was my next question. If you could each tell me your Garden Club origin story, how you came to the Garden Club and what it was like when you joined and how long ago you joined and those kinds of things.
Well, when I came, I've always been a gardener. No matter where. My family is full of gardeners. My older sister is a landscape architect, and my younger sister is very involved in gardens. So it's just growing up, that's always the way it was. When I came to Ocean Pines, I tend to be a joiner, and I looked around as to what would kind of get me into new friends and new experiences. And of course, the Garden Club was one of my absolute choices. And then I'm also a member of the OPLGA, which is Ocean Pines Ladies Golf Association. So those were my two things. And that has steered me very well for the past 10 years.
And how about you?
I was starting here with real estate. And then when I made my rounds through the Ocean Pines, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And I was always wondering, well, who did that over there? And where did that gazebo come from? And who makes the decisions on the plantings around the ponds and things like that? So that drew me to go to the garden club. I got sidetracked for a while because I became a home health aide and my schedule didn't allow me to go to a lot of meetings and things like that. But I made the commitment and I promised Anne. But I know Anne said she stepped down as president, but she's not going anywhere.
That's what they tell me.
That's great. So let's talk about it. So who does the plantings? Who decides on the plantings? How can people affect what plantings go where? Actually, before we talk about that, I want to talk about, you mentioned, Ms. Shockley, you were a master gardener. That's not a requirement, but you do have a number of you guys work closely with the Worcester County Master Gardeners. Many of you are members. Is that right? Am I making that up?
No, Nancy is the master gardener.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'm making some of it up at least.
No, you do not have to be a master gardener to be in the garden club. I mean, that's very important. It takes a lot of work to get the certification for a master gardener. Ginny is our cooperative extension agent.
Jenny Rosencrantz, who is
I remember her, yeah.
Yes,
she's
for
fabulous,
the University of Maryland.
But it takes a lot of work, and she's, they sign up once a year to take those classes. It's pretty intense, but you do not have to be that. And when I met all the women that are in this club, the majority are not master gardeners.
Now, we probably have about 5,
Yeah.
I would think, that are master gardeners. Most people just are interested in gardening.
Right.
Some people have very beautiful gardens at their house, extensive. Some people have a couple plants in pots.
Yeah.
And so that is one thing that we do want to stress, that you do not have to be this very knowledgeable person about gardens, because we have a wide range of speakers and experiences that we do through the year with the garden club. And it's a welcome for anybody who just like a good group of people to enjoy. And gardening is definitely our emphasis and our focus, but it's not necessarily that you have to be this fabulous gardener.
Oh, no.
Well, and so then let's talk about what are the meetings like when you get speakers. Like, can you tell me some of the top speakers you've had this year, some of the more interesting ones, and what you do to find speakers and to look out for them so that you can book them, and like, do you have like a holster full speakers in your holster or whatever?
Yes, and that's the co-vice presidents. That's basically their job, among other things. For this year, we have somebody coming in the February. Our meetings are the second Thursday of every month at the community center. And this is going to be representative from Public Works to talk about the projects and the plans. Hopefully, Tony, I can't think of Tony's last name right now, but he and his crew are responsible for a lot. I would say 80% of what goes on in Ocean Pines as far as gardens. We have a garden tour, and it's not really a tour, I should say. It's more visits, because it's just among the garden members, and different ones will offer up their gardens for that day. And we just walk around. It's fun to see what other people are doing.
So I'm sorry. So someone will invite you, like it's at I don't know, Mary's house this week, and we're all going to go and look at Mary's garden. Is that
in May? It is a specific meeting. In other words, rather than having a regular meeting on that Thursday of that month, we would have arrangement where different people have already volunteered their gardens, and we set up a schedule, and then we would go around and see what's going on. Yeah, and just see what they're doing in there and what works and what doesn't work and the plants that they use and so forth. And so that is like a meeting. Yeah, it's not just haphazard, although you can always go to somebody's garden, I guess, if you want to. In June, our trip is to north of Eden Farm, and we will go there, and she will explain our farm, because they have a camp in the summer for the kids that aren't in school. We really can't meet at the community center. So then that's when we schedule field trips.
I see. That makes sense.
Yep. But our March meeting is going to be on shade plants. And so Stephanie Graves from Stringham Petals is coming to talk to us. And then in April, we start preparing for the big Arbor Day ceremony, which Anne heads up every year.
And so what is that all about? What's the Arbor Day ceremony?
That again is on the second Thursday in April. And what we do is we honor those who have passed for the prior year. So this year being 2025, it would be people that have passed in 2024. It can be family members of garden members. It can be very, very close friends. And we usually have up to 20 people that we are honoring. So it's not something that's open to all of Ocean Pines as far as that's concerned. It is open to all of Ocean Pines to come. We welcome everybody. We have singers, whether it would be the Delmarva chorus. We have officials that come and proclaim this day is Garden Club Day for Arbor Day. We have a bagpiper that opens up the ceremonies. We plant a tree each year. And so we've not even decided on the tree this year. Last year, it was a holly called a Christmas jewel, which was the variety of holly. So if you go to Pintail Park, there's a ton of trees. And it's a very moving ceremony that we have. And the people who have lost loved ones and are part of the ceremony have always mentioned at the end that this is really something that helped them to get through their loss and that they are very appreciative of.
So I actually remember as you were telling that story, it was coming back to me. I covered one of those in probably 2005 or 2006. Because when you said Pintail Park, I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then when you kind of explained the ceremony, it was all coming back to me. And it really is. It's a fantastic way to kind of get everybody together around the idea of trees and memorialization all at the same time.
And then in May, we do the fun things we create these arrangements for Mother's Day and we sell them at the farmer's market. What is that? May 10th.
The day before Mother's Day.
The day before Mother's Day. And they're beautiful little things. And we always sell out of them. They're just lovely. We put them together for 2 days and they really look very, very cute.
I wanted to ask you about that because what's really interesting to me is like, who donates them? Like right now, are you planning what you're going to plant for your Mother's Day bouquets? What is that? How does that kind of shake out?
Basically, everybody who volunteers to come, we meet at one of our members' house and they will go out to the local Food Lion or whatever and bring a bunch of flowers. But we also bring greens and everything else from our own gardens. We collect containers. Anybody who's got extra containers, whether they're vases or teacups or whatever they are. And then we just meet there and put them together and take them it's been not only a good fundraiser for us, but a lot of fun. It's a good cash and carry. Yeah. Little kids will come and put their little $5 up because they're very inexpensive and take something home for Mom for Mother's Day.
That's fantastic. And so that's because that was my other question, because you probably don't have a lot of people who are growing. Do you have a lot of people who are growing like hothouse type flowers or carnations or,
No,
all right?
No.
A lot of the women will go and pick up some flowers at the store and then bring them, but they use the greens from their own garden. And so we make the bouquets that way.
Right. And what I wanted to get at is how important is are you guys use like native species? Is that kind of a thing that you guys promote, or is that an aesthetic choice, I guess, between members?
Well, there's a lot of people that use those and try to use native plants and pollinators in their home gardens. So yes, some of those might get into, but it's not a total focus that's what they have to be. Most members do have more of a variety and a selection in their gardens rather than one particular thing. But one of our new projects is, I don't know if people have noticed the Be Patient signs. There are 3 locations in Ocean Pines, and that is a pollinator garden that bulbs have been planted for the spring, but then we will be planting flowers as soon as we get no snow anymore. And so those are pollinator gardens. If they're successful and people enjoy them, then we plan to expand them. But for now, they're small until we just see how it goes and what happens.
Hey there, listeners. Are you in the Ocean Pines area and looking for a pharmacy that goes above and beyond? Look no further than Tidal Health Home Scripts. Open 6 days a week, our knowledgeable pharmacists are ready to fill your prescriptions in just minutes. Plus, We offer free home delivery in the Ocean Pines area and have a super convenient drive-through window. Need over-the-counter items? We've got a large selection. And with our monthly sales, you'll find everything you need at great prices. Conveniently located at the North Gate of Ocean Pines, Tidal Health Home Scripts is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. To fill a prescription or arrange for a free home delivery, give us a call at 410-543-4769. That's 410-543-4769. Remember, that's Tidal Health Home Scripts, your trusted pharmacy partner. So I have 2 pollinator garden stories that I would like to share with you to get you to kind of comment on them. First of all, I was too old when I discovered that there is such a thing as, what are they called? Sculpture gardens in some big cities. And since I've discovered them, I always try to make an effort to go to these sculpture gardens because they're always so, they're always so impressive. I mean, but the pollinator aspect of them is what kind of shocked me, especially this year. We were in Milwaukee, I think, and they had these plants that my wife had just recently planted. I think they were called Joe Pie, and they were massive. They were like house-sized, and I didn't realize that you could cultivate flowers to be these such monstrous, but in a good way. I can't think of a word other than it was just all that to ask you, when you're planning out your gardens for these pollinator gardens, do you think in terms of like, if they take and stay, they can get huge, right?
Yes, the Joe Pie that you're talking about is native. You find it up in the mountains a lot of times too. And of course you found it.
Right.
And it is huge. So one of the considerations we had to do, because you're passing by in cars, you can't have something so huge that you can't see where you're going. So of course that was a consideration. There'll be some native grasses that are planted there as well, to provide a balance. And I have to admit, I did not bring the list of all the different plants. Actually, and they're not going to be planted by seeds. They're going to be planted by plugs, which are basically like little bits of them. The success rate for those is going to be a lot better than just planting seeds. But it will be mostly native pollinators and native plants, because your native plant is going to grow a lot better because they are acclimated to your environment here at Ocean Pines, rather than trying to get something that definitely does not want to be here.
This was a big coordination between Ocean Pines Public Works Department, University of Maryland Extension, the Assateague Coastal Bays, and the Lower Shore Land Trust. So, and Nancy from our Bluebird Farms. She's Bluebird Farms. She's fabulous. So it's taken a lot of people to coordinate this effort and get this started. And let's see how well they do. Hopefully it'll be beautiful, and we can keep making them bigger and bigger, and you won't have to mow the grass.
You left because that is also a sticking point, like in Ocean Pines, because you don't have to cut native grasses, for example. And increasingly, I guess, especially as people age, I know one of the reasons I've become much more interested in flowers is we're trying to plant our whole front yard so no one has to cut that whole front yard when we're 70.
There you go.
And I'm starting now with the hope that if I plant, one plant, that's why the Joe Pie kind of changed. I'm like, why don't we just put 2 of those Joe Pie in our front yard, and no one will see our house in another 10 years?
It's quite true.
Nobody will know if we cut the grass or not. But when you're thinking about doing that kind of thing in front of your house, one of the tricks in Ocean Pines is it is so shady in a lot of places. So finding kind of that right balance. Do you guys share advice about, what kind of things really work best in Ocean Pines in the shade? Because it must be tricky.
Absolutely. And there's a lot because there's so many pines, this ground tends to be acidic.
Yeah.
And also because we have such a closeness to the ocean, we have a fairly sandy soil. So there's a lot of challenges to Ocean Pines and what works well. So you look for things that can go, can take salt air, and that can take sand, and that can, either survive. Some of the houses, if you've been, different neighborhoods, they're all sun. Some are completely shade. Some are a little above. So it is a challenge, and we do share what works well. And in fact, with the North Gate, Tony and his gang, Tony Howard, let me make sure that I get his name in there, and his gang plant all the vinca and all those plants. Right now, there's the decorative cabbages that are there for the winter.
Right.
But the inside square where the palm trees go, that is all plants from our gardens. And those are all perennials that come back every year.
And are there like I don't know, maybe I don't need you to name all top 10, but can you tell me some of the more popular plants if someone's listening, they're like, okay, I want to start sticking stuff in my shady, sandy front yard. Where should I start?
I don't know, because my yard looks like it really needs to be a mushroom patch. I mean, I don't have an ounce of sunlight. I think it's amazing how shaded my area is. And I've really just let it be. And it's amazing what's come up and what's, trimmed back. And I put flower pots with shade flowers just to add a little color. But it's primarily green, and it's green with whatever is naturally growing in the area. And I just keep them trimmed and shaped as best I can. And it really is quite a trick to do.
It is. And, of course, we have the deer who just love hosta, which is a great plant for shade, but they will eat it right down to the bottom if you're not careful or don't spray.
They ate every inch of my hostas.
Hollies, if you look in ocean pines, hollies are native. I mean, you'll see them in the woods. So, of course, hollies do well in yards. I'm trying to think. Actually, hydrangeas do well if you have a more sunny spot. Too. Those are shrubs. Like Nancy, I use pots a lot.
Yes.
Because I don't plant a lot of little annuals in my garden because they're more to take care of. So pots not only add architectural interest, but they make it easy to put focuses of little flowers here and there without having to do your whole yard.
And shrubs. I mean, I have the azaleas in the spring, and that's beautiful and colorful. And then the hydrangeas are beautiful if the deer don't eat them. And then that's the kind of sprinkling of color that we can get within the areas.
Well, it's really funny that you mentioned the hostas because they're literally the only shade-loving plant that I know. And I'm like, I felt stupid. I'm like, well, they didn't mention hostas. Maybe I should. And so I'm glad you brought up that they're too edible to really make much of a go out of it in some places.
Well, and you just have to depend where you put them.
Right. And you can do ferns. You can pick beautiful ferns, and they're lovely. But you have to work them into the landscape. Yeah. It takes a little while for them, but they do look lovely once they're in.
Liriope is a good one, and it's more like a decorative grass.
Mm-hmm.
The deer don't touch it too much unless they're really hungry. And that's a great thing there's variegated and there's plain green. And you can stick those in shady spots. They do well.
What I wanted to kind of follow up with that, because now that it's in my head, it seems like something worth mentioning. One of the upsides of joining the garden club is that you get to, if you have a shady house, you get to play in someone else's sunlight and still help cultivate all these beautiful plants.
That's quite true.
This is true. We do also have 2 plant exchanges, usually one in the spring and one in the fall, where people bring in things from their gardens. And then if you bring something in, you can take something home.
Oh.
So it's a nice way to share our plants with each other.
Yeah, that's at one of our meetings. And then we have also at the meetings we're going to have in October, it's called The Little Potion, my dear. And it's a little green witch apothecary that's going to do a clinical herbalist. So there's all different types of things that we have that are regarding or relating to plants, but they're more fun.
Yeah. Can you talk about the bench donation this year?
Yes, the benches. Well, we have donated quite a few things throughout our history. We started at the Anchor at the Ocean Pines Yacht Club was a donation from us. The gazebo in Pintail Park was a donation. If you go to the community center and the 2 marble benches in the front, that was ours. We donated plaques to the Gold Star program at Veterans Memorial, bench at Pintail Park. And when Tony and his gang redid the North Gate, we put $1,000 towards plants and whatnot there.
Wow.
So the bench is and then we did a bench last year, and it's kind of fun. The bench at Pintail Park was commercially, but then we had a member that found a company that is in Maryland and produces benches made from bottle caps from recycled material.
Oh, that's crazy.
So and it was half the price of the one we had bought at Pintail. So last year, if you go on Brampton Road, and then there's a little road right off at Hopewell Court to the left, and that was our bench from last year. And that was from the recycled, and it's a delightful bench. So, Nancy, what are we doing next year?
Oh, so I'm a home health aide, and one of my patients, we walked every day over to Bainbridge Park. He loved it, but he was sitting in a wheelchair and he wanted to stay there for a long time. The only problem was I had no place to sit down.
Yeah.
So I asked him, could we put a bench over there? And bless his heart, he just passed, and we're going to do a bench in his name this year. So we're over in Bainbridge Park. So that will be fun.
That is fun.
It's delightful.
So I'm sorry, when you say it's made of bottle caps, my first thing, because I'm 1,000 years old, was like Budweiser caps, but I'm thinking that's not.
No, plastic.
I'm thinking it's probably like a composite kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. No, they're not glued together. No, they are. I'm sure, I have no idea the process, but it certainly looks like they have melted them down and used that as a raw material in order to form the benches. And I have to admit that when we purchased it last year, Eddie Wells was a little hesitant because he thought, ooh, is this going to be up to snuff? But it was. He's very impressed. So it is a good sturdy bench. And if you didn't know it, you would have no idea.
And now is that the plan now? Is this the new kind of bench that you guys are putting out, or is it like a case by case?
No, we'll probably be following through with this bench from now on, one a year.
Yeah, It's a Maryland company, and it reuses recycled materials, which we are all interested in. So it's a win-win.
Excellent. Do you happen to know the name off the top of your head? Not to put you on the spot.
No, I do not.
No sweat.
I am so sorry.
And so you said you kind of gave me an in, and I'm going to take it. If someone wanted to find the bench and they didn't have their phone, I'll bet they wish they had a book. Regular listeners know that sometimes I like to ask about people getting lost in Ocean Pines, and you reminded us today about a book that used to exist. Can you talk about that?
Oh my, that kind of dates me. When we first started being interested in Ocean Pines before we even moved here, they used to have ADC maps. And I don't know if the people realize they were just a big book, and they would usually by county, and they would have a directory in the back with all the streets and all the actually towns too listed. And you would go back and look for the street that you were hoping to find. And it gave you, page 4, which happens to be 4 and 8 tend to be the big Ocean Pine pages. And then it would give you the grid, like A5 on that page, and you could find the street. So it was a lifesaver when we first came to Ocean Pines, because Ocean Pines is like a rabbit warren in many places, and it's easy to get lost. So this was very helpful. This was before you had cell phones that you just put it in and put the address in, and it told you where to get.
If there's something to be missed about maps in general, it's being able to kind of zoom out. Because when you're driving, it's like, go this way, trust me. And I'm like, I don't trust you, phone. I would like to see if there are other ways to go. But the phone won't show you where you are. It'll only show you where you're going. So that really just kind of ticked a nostalgia button for me. And I wanted to ask about it for that reason. And before we go, I do want to ask you also to talk one more time about your about when your meetings are and where they are and what it takes to join. And if you know what's in March, if you could tell us, because I think we're coming out after your meeting in February.
Well, March is Please Keep Me in the Dark. And as Nancy mentioned, it's Strings and Petals. It's a store. Or is it a garden center?
I think it's a garden center.
A garden center, my mistake. And she's going to talk about native shade plants. All our meetings are on the second Thursday of each month, 10 o'clock. And we welcome all and everyone. We would love to have you as guests. You are welcome anytime to any meeting. I would also like to mention that we have a Facebook page. Actually, it's not a page, it's a group, which is a private page. But we also have a website. And our website is bit.ly/Ocean Pines Garden Club. If you just put Ocean Pines Garden Club into Google, I'm sure it would come up.
How many could there possibly be?
Right.
Yes. So that also lists our meetings and pertinent information. And we would love to have. And again, you do not have to be this fabulous gardener.
No.
We welcome anybody and everybody, ladies and men, to come and enjoy. We would love to have you.
That is absolutely fantastic. And so that is all I have for you, but you might have something else for me. Is there something that I didn't ask and should have, or something that you thought you'd get the opportunity to say, but I didn't provide it?
I mean, there's so much to the club. We would take another whole session to be able to go over everything from the Christmas decorations right through to everything that the club does here for Ocean Pines. And it's a wonderful community, and they all work so well together. So,
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
The PinesCast is an Ocean Pines Association production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. Executive producer, Josh Davis. Please subscribe wherever you are listening now, or follow if you're on Apple. If you like the show, please tell someone else about it, because that is the best way to get the word out. Every week I say it, and this is a week, so I'm saying it. I would love to have your feedback, and I would love to keep this conversation going. So if you care to email me, you can do that at bytonyrusso@gmail.com. That is bytonyrusso@gmail.com. If, for example, there's a story that you want to tell, but you don't want to be on the show to tell it, or there's a story you want me to find out about and have someone else tell it, shoot me an email. I'll get it all worked out. And of course, we would love to have your ratings and reviews on the app of your choice, but mostly we want you to listen to the show. We want you to like the show. And as I said, we would very much like it if you told other people about it. You can also send along comments or questions that we will address in future shows as is possible and appropriate. And that is all for this week on the PinesCast.